Hi third graders! Today we're going to be working on how to write a personal narrative. All you need is some paper, something to write with, and if you want the printables, you can find the links for them in the comment section, or you can just follow along with mine as I go. So let's get started. Okay guys, if you were able to print out the passage, you can follow along and annotate on yours. Otherwise, just pay attention as I go over it. This is an example of a personal narrative. It's called Unexpected Guess. And as we read, I want you to pay attention and look for some clues that helps show us why this is a personal narrative. So let's start at the beginning. Wake up, sweetheart, wake up. I heard a voice whispering and my arm being gently nudged. I rubbed my eyes and squinted to help my eyes adjust. I could see my mom leaning over me in her pajamas. Mom, what is it? I whispered back. Shh, follow me and come see, Mom answered. I watched Mom swiftly walk through the cabin hallway and into the living room where the moon lit up the entire room. The wooden floor of the cabin was cold under my feet. Mom led the way to the big window where the moon was shining through, and she knelt down on the couch. I slowly knelt down on the couch next to her, and we leaned over the top looking out the window together. Do you see them? Isn't it something? She asked with amazement in her voice. My eyes searched through the darkness, through the giant pine trees, and up the hillside out the window. It was very dark, but the stars glittered the sky and the moon was nice and full. Suddenly, there they were. It was breathtaking. A whole herd of elk were traveling up the hillside. Some were stopped, grazing on grass and carefully searching for danger around them. Some smoothly led the way up the hill as others trailed behind them. Their eyes reflected the light of the moon as they cautiously scanned the forest. There were so many of them, 10, maybe 15. They seemed so much larger in person than I'd seen in magazines. My mom and I sat frozen as statues as we observed their every move. Finally, the last one made its way up the grassy hill and disappeared through the trees. My heart sank a bit, and I felt sad to see them go. I glanced up at Mom, still in awe. She grinned at me, and I laid my head on her shoulder. She put her arms around me and squeezed as I closed my eyes and smiled. I will never forget that night that I heard her soft voice whisper, "Wake up, sweetheart, wake up." So we want to look at who the author is writing about. And one thing that I notice in the dialogue is I see I heard, I whispered. And then even when it's describing the action, I watched, I slowly knelt. And so I'm seeing the pronoun I repeated throughout the story. I'm also seeing pronouns like my eyes, my mom, my heart. And so what these pronouns tell me is that the person telling the story is the author of the story. So this story was written by the person that it happened to. And then when we're looking at personal narratives, there's kind of a clue in the title that it's a personal narrative. So do you think this story is fiction or nonfiction? If you said nonfiction, you are correct. A personal narrative is a nonfiction story. This is something that actually happened to somebody. It wasn't made up. And so if you are able to print out the printables, you can pull up your anchor chart. If not, follow along with mine. So in a personal narrative, who is the main character? And I can go back and look at my example. Remember, we saw the pronoun I, we saw the pronoun my. So who would that main character be? You are the main character. And if this is a story about you, it's a personal narrative, and we said it's nonfiction, that means that you are the main character in this. What kind of story is it? Is it true or not true? Good, in this true story. So take a moment and think of some examples. What would a personal narrative be? What could you write about? You can either jot them down on a piece of paper or you can share with someone at home with you. I'm going to write down just a few examples. Remember, these are not the only things that a personal narrative can be. These are just some of them. So you could write a personal narrative that might be a sports story. So maybe a story about the time I hit a home run. Maybe it's something that you've done, a story about like a special family event. Maybe the time that I baked a birthday cake for my mom. So if you printed out the chart, you can be filling in either these examples or you can be coming up with your own examples. Remember, the examples of a personal narrative are things that really happened in your life. Maybe it's something about back when we were at school and maybe you missed the bus. So I could write a story about the time I missed the bus and was late to school. And if you notice in my examples, once again, we have that pronoun I, because a personal narrative, you are the main character. It's a story from your life, something that really happened to you. I'm going to show some different examples now of things that someone might write a story about, and I want you to decide, is it a personal narrative or not? Okay guys, let's look at these examples. Is it a personal narrative? A story about the time I went to the circus. Notice that pronoun I. And is this something I could really do? Could I have gone to the circus? So yes, this is a personal narrative. All about how I broke my arm at camp last year. Again, we have the pronoun I and the pronoun my. So yes, this is a personal narrative. A report about the life of George Washington. So we know George Washington is a real person, so this could be a true story. But remember, in a personal narrative, you are who the story is about, and I am not George Washington, so this would not be a personal narrative. A story about the day we adopted our puppy. This time I see the pronouns we and our, and we haven't talked about those yet, but we is a group of people that includes me, and our is a group of people that includes me. So this is also a personal narrative. And our last one, a thank you note to Grandma for my birthday gift. So again, I see the pronoun my, and I could really do this. I could write a note to my grandma to thank her for a birthday gift. But this one's not a personal narrative because a thank you note is not a story about something that happened in my life. There's more of these cards on Moodle or Clever, and you can also find the link at the bottom of the video. for you to go and read through and then submit, yes, it's an example of a personal narrative, or no, it's not. So please go check that out. And so just to sum up, remember, a personal narrative is a story where you are the main character in a true story. And we're going to be working on personal narratives for the next 2 weeks. So if you were able to print these materials out, hold on to them. And if you weren't and you took some notes on a piece of paper or in a notebook, hold on to that paper and notebook so you have it to reference over the next 2 weeks. Thanks for watching, and we will be back tomorrow to talk about how writers get ideas for their stories.